Hello and welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name is Leonides and I am going to be your host for this episode, and I'm going to warn you right within the first 10 seconds of this video, it's going to be a long one. There's a lot to talk about here, including material that I've accrued playing the game, material that I've accrued elsewhere. So if you're not one of these people that wants in-depth reviews covering every aspect of the game that I possibly could over the last couple of weeks that I've been playing it, jog the f*** on now, because I got a lot to say about this game. And also another small caveat, and I've made a note to make sure I say this, because I can sometimes talk about things that I have no idea about, or talk of things I have biases on and don't enlighten you, the audience, of, and I feel like I need to, especially on this particular occasion. So if you'll just permit me. So I've written to myself, Lorne, you sexy bastard.
You're breathtaking.
Talk about how badly you suck at platformers, how you hate to lose, and how you detest custom-made levels or creation games. Yeah, so you might think as a result that the game I'm about to review is about to get a real royal kicking. However, I will start this review by saying that this game is so good, it makes me not care about any one of those three things.
Dear God, it's beautiful.
Danger, action, speed, heroes is a 2D platformer with some unique elements, but overall takes a well-established concept and genre and intersperses Mario Maker in there, albeit with a few other small caveats and its own distinctive flavour. As if by holy prophecy, thine script was handed to me, and thine lawn, thine read, thine script. Precision and speed-based 2D platformer where the worlds you compete in are created by the players, take part in ongoing quest. In the ongoing quest, see, I nearly gave it, the synopsis is often misspelled, but I nearly gave it, we're fine, we're good. Take part in the ongoing quest to find the fastest runner and watch as your creations challenge and intrigue. The release date is the 6th of June, so it's been out for about a month or so. The developer is Baby Duka and Shubel IT, the publisher is also Baby Duka. The genre is action, indie, early access, developer, I've already got this information. Why am I telling you again? The price of the game is $13.99, which is steep, and in fact I think it's the second most expensive game that I reviewed, but we'll touch on whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing in a minute. Just let's give you a brief synopsis of the game again. Before the speed heroes arrived to Dash Planet, King Slap's horde of two-dimensional platformer enemies were fairly content in their slimy and jelly-like bodies. Now, after all the head jumping and diamonds disappearing, King Slap and his army were fed up with the heroes. Every day more diamonds disappear on the planet. Every day, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of this isn't really relevant considering that there isn't a story mode in the game. And in terms of a narrative that links the player, the characters within the game, and the enemies, I can give you my assurances that having played this game for a reasonable amount of time, I have no idea what this is talking about. So let's get into some of the features instead, shall we? Dash, double jump, triple dash, bullet jump, and wall slide your victory in a world of colourful pixel art. I would agree with that assessment. You can create levels, you can get the levels graded, you can enhance your speedrun skills by practicing and dying a million times as I did. Roster of heroes with individual strengths and weaknesses to a degree, we'll touch on that in just a second. Unique power-up system with combos and extra power, it does have this, albeit it's, yeah, we'll touch on that in a second as well. For the enemies, make them work for you, bouncy bodies, new heights. Kind of, yes. Original soundtrack. Yes, actually, no, I would give it credit for that. The soundtrack is reasonably good, especially what is the song that accompanied me for most of my gameplay. Handmade pixel graphics by Baby Duka are excellent. I will give them credit for that. And connect with runners and creators on our Discord server, which, by the way, I was given by Baby Duka. I never got a chance to really integrate. I'm not the most social gamer in the world. So the idea of socializing with others while I do something for my personal entertainment has never been something that's appealed to me all that greatly. But what's the essence of this game? What's the point of this game? What's the real reason why you would purchase this platformer over others? Well, in a word, it's because not only is it fun, and it has the fun factor that something like She Wants to Be Dead lacked, not only does it have the same production quality, I would argue, as the same, albeit it's 3 times expensive now, but that's because potentially it's brand new, whereas She Wants to Be Dead is probably, I'd have to look up the history of that game, but I would imagine it's fluctuated in price. If that's what it's gone down to, that's fair enough, but if it started at that, the price disparity is quite a lot there. But here's the critical thing. Dash is fun. Dash has elements of the game that reward you, that punish you, that encourage you, that slander you, that that She Wants Me Dead doesn't have. Dash gives you the tools to succeed and the tools to have fun, and it revels in its quirkiness, whereas She Wants Me Dead goes part of the way there, but then ultimately gets too wrapped up in its making the game balls out hard to really be a rewarding experience. This game has the customization element of each level. Every level has been designed by either the developer themselves or players within the game with a certain idea behind them. Some levels, for instance, have a specific path that you're not really going to be able to avoid playing, especially the easier levels, because it's just a question of getting through as quickly as you can. You'll notice immediately when you boot up this game that you'll have the top left-hand bar full of times, and you'll be like, oh, I don't know what are these. Those are the best runs of that level. And the idea of the game is basically just try and compete with those times, which some of them you can go, I could maybe come close to that or match it, or just have a respectable time. Others, you genuinely scratch your head and you go, I have no earthly idea how you manage this. Damn! Another thing about this game that I really liked when I first started playing it is, again, the overall aesthetic. It's incredibly quirky. Even though I didn't have the faintest idea what was going on at first, I picked a level at random and it turned out to be the most impossible level ever because I still had no grasp of the mechanics. It still looked fantastic, it still sounded fantastic, the load times were very reasonable, the animations are smooth, the respawn was quick, there's no lives to hinder you to make you worry about making mistakes. The fact that it's designed for speedruns and repetitive gameplay means that the developer has really honed in on the tiny little details of the game to make sure that no matter how many times you replay a level, there's going to be something about it that's going to challenge you, something that's going to catch you by surprise, or something that's going to reward you for having memorized part of the level. Another thing I really liked are the controls. Now, they can be tricky to get used to, especially considering that, again, it's one of these deals that you can't remap the buttons. I pray with a day where a developer will let me choose what buttons I can and can't press on my own keyboard, considering that, again, games on Newgrounds, games on Mousebreaker, games on previous defunct gaming websites allowed you this ability, so I don't understand why it's so hard to code this into the games. Someone's going to have to sit down and explain to me this sometimes, especially considering that the game controls in this game, for instance, are the directional buttons, spacebar, and then a series of buttons, I believe it's D, S, and A, or potentially, no, it is D, S, and A, I think W as well, that allow you to do certain actions. One is a dash, one is a shoot. These mechanics add flavor to the levels. The best example I can give to this is that there was a level I came across towards the latter part of my gameplay where you're on one platform, you've got nowhere to go, there's nothing. So the diamond must be somewhere else. Turns out what you're supposed to do is point your gun downwards, which you can do, you can fire in 4 different directions, point the gun downwards and shoot your way up Yosemite Sam style. Perfect. And that's just one example of the way that the game's ingenious creation level design mechanic integrates with the 2D platforming elements that the developer has built from scratch to create a game that has vast potential and immense replayability because of how fun it is, because of the fact that you've always got that world record looming in the top left-hand corner and that incentive to replay that level to learn, okay, how did you do that? Because it has the ghost mechanic. The best ghost mechanics I can remember were from games like back in the day, like Burnin' Road. That was the first racing game I ever really remember playing like vividly on the PlayStation. And that had a ghost mode on it, and I remember it being just the most thrilling thing to keep pace with the ghost mode, especially if it wasn't mine, or if it was mine, can I beat me? I put in this, can I beat myself? It's the same kind of thrill. You're seeing the best of the best complete that level. And when you're keeping pace, or even when you're ahead, it is exhilarating. You feel empowered and emboldened right up until the moment that you die. And you do die in one hit. There's no buff mechanics that I've been able to find. The only exception to this is a fire. Overall, when you dash, you can do damage, or when you land, you kill things rather than blowing them up. Again, you can shoot, but the bullets for your guns are located throughout the level, and it's very rare that you'll start the level with any ammunition at all, and often getting these bullets is going to involve some kind of risk. And the thing with a lot of these levels is you're going to need to replay them at least, I say once, dozens of times potentially to be able to get to them, especially the larger levels. They come in different variations of size based on the creator, at least. I think there were 3 different sizes that I could see based on the creation levels that I experienced. And of these levels, they can be complex, they can be intriguing, they can be simple, they can be direct, they can be enemy infested, they can be trap infested. you might struggle to get to grips with the game at first, especially if you're dumb like I did and didn't cycle through what the game also does very well. It labels everything incredibly easily. The playlists for each set of levels are there, the ratings for each level are there, and indeed the predisposition of what type of level you're going to play based on the character that is the most successful will all guide you into the kind of levels that you're more likely to have fun with. Touching on the characters for a second, I think you have 5 or 6, I forget how many offhand. The one I tended to use the most was the bunny character, because number one, his jump is insane, and that tends to be the most important element of the games. It was a Ryu-inspired character that I also liked, but I didn't get much game time with him because once I'd gotten used to the bunny character, the jumps and the mechanics there, it became very difficult to readjust. But it must be said that different characters are going to have different strengths based on the levels, and the chances are that those characters are going to be more successful in the levels that are predisposed to being the character that the person designing the level prefers. In my case, when I designed my level, large jumps, a lot of platforming, not a lot of traps, not a lot of enemies. It was about your skill and precision. Timing was key. In other levels, it's about more patience, being more reticent. In other levels, it's about being more considered and intelligent, about seeing gaps and spotting exactly what the puzzle, because some levels are just straight up puzzles. You just have to find your way of navigating your out. Some are mazes, some you just have to work your way to get out of them or work a way to be able to find not only the objective of the level, which is to find a diamond at the end, but it's also how to get a platform that will also release the diamond. So sometimes you'll be looking around, you'll be like, but there's no diamond anywhere. Well, the chances are that you've not discovered a platform, a red platform that turns green when you touch on it, that then allows you to see the diamond. I get caught out on this sometimes because I followed the world record, and some of the world records, for whatever reason, don't seem to have a platform that they cut across to find the diamond. So maybe I missed a step, maybe they were just too quick for me to see, but there are some levels where you'll need to find this before you can find the diamond. But it's easy to see that a community foundation is what sets this game apart from other platformers that you're going to see on Steam, predominantly because not only is it the community that you're competing against, which always adds such a great element to a lot of the Steam games that I see, because I referenced it in the Power Gunner review that it really enhanced that game. I've referenced it in a few other games such as Doom Tank and I believe Cosimo Chaser, where there's no community element that would have helped bridge the gap with some of the foibles of those games. This game has it at its heart, it has it at its center, and that's not hard to understand when you take into account what Baby Duka, the developer of the game, told me when I asked my typical interviewee style questions as a vague attempt to try and be journalistic when approaching these reviews. So when I asked Baby Duka the question, to save a bit of time here, they mentioned that in their first project they wanted to go on to make a platforming game, whereas the first one isn't. The art style is kept from that, by the way, so you'll see a similarity in both games. And indeed, Urban Pirate, which was that first game in 2016, is on Steam right now, so you can pick that up if you want to. But they mentioned that while they were working in Denmark, they were putting together the game. One of the other gentlemen that was working on the game, a guy called Philip, who later became the lead back-end programmer, noticed that one of the more fun parts of the game was when people designed a level and other players attempted to beat it, which isn't a unique concept necessarily, but it seems to be something that I haven't seen in a tremendous amount of other indie titles that I've reviewed so far. I mean, clearly, and it's even referenced here, they looked at other Maker games such as Mario Maker and saw that they were special in the sense that it was so focused on the speedrun element and the leaderboard-based part. So what they're saying, in effect, is that they are embodying and embracing this newfound want and need for people to be collaborative and creative. You see this all the time, not necessarily in Fortnite, because of course they do use construction elements in that game, but it's more for the combat rather than building something and map building, because you're all kind of chucked into the same map, so to speak. But you do see this in Minecraft, you do see this in other larger games, you start to see it in AAA titles as well, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that an indie game can incorporate this as well, assuming that they can build a framework that works. And this game really does do that well. Again, the playlists are the thing that I would point to, because not only are they categorized easily so you can understand, I went straight to the easiest as soon as I found that one and found it to be a much more enjoyable experience once I'd gotten a hold of the mechanics and the momentum and the bounces and the controls and how to manipulate the game to get what I wanted. It also meant that when I was ready to take on the more challenging levels, you can look at the levels that are designed the best, because each level, and you, after you complete each level, are given the option to be able to vote on it. And I think that's a clever mechanic, by the way. It means that you have to beat the level in order to have a valid opinion on whether or not it's a good level. Now, some people might argue that that's biased against people that can't complete the level. Well, yes, but it also means that you're not judging the level based on what you've experienced up until that point that would then denigrate the overall quality of the level, because it might be a tremendously well-styled level, but it might not be geared towards your playstyle. As I referenced before, some of these levels have intriguing design elements that manipulate the mechanics or utilize them to a different effect, like the gun mechanic that I referenced earlier. Some are going to have torrents of enemies, others are going to require you to pay attention to the gaps, maybe change characters. The game might start you off with a character, but it might not suit that level. Again, the bunny character, for instance, is not suited to levels that are much tighter because that jump mechanic is harder to control given the bounce is much higher than with other characters. One thing though, that despite what I've just said about gearing the game towards your own playstyle, the dev did mention the fact that, and I'll rephrase it just to avoid throwing anyone under the bus here, they're not shying away from making levels that are obtusely hard. A meme made its way around Twitter the other day with a Mario level that was constructed of all fire lines, and it just looked impossible, but someone managed to complete it. There are levels in this game that will push you to that same extent. There are levels that are going to have hundreds of enemies. They're going to be levels that are literally reams of jagged spikes that are just lining everywhere, and you think, well, where am I supposed to go here? But nevertheless, if you want to persevere with those levels, that is your choice. At any one point, you can click escape or press escape, and you can exit the level, you can replay the level, you can go on to the next level without completing that level. There's nothing that inhibits your progress, and there's nothing that inhibits your enjoyment of this game. If you don't want to play that level, you don't have to play that level. If you don't want to play with that character, you don't have to play with that character. If you don't want to play any of the levels, you can complete your own. And the best part is that people can give you feedback on that level. Maybe you don't find your enjoyment in this game playing the game. Maybe you'll find your enjoyment in creating levels for other people to complete. And again, that's such a unique aspect of this game that I don't see a lot of in a lot of the other titles that I've reviewed so far. The fact that it encourages your own personal enjoyment of the game. It doesn't necessarily guide you down a narrow path of enjoyment that you will either enjoy or you won't. This game does, in effect, allow you the freedom to enjoy it however you wish. And it is worth pointing out that the developer very strongly recommended that you pick them up on Discord, Steam, or the stream, or whatever it is. I have Discord. I don't use it very often, so someone else will have to be the judge on whether or not it's a good thing or not. Again, I avoid all social contact as much as I can. But some of the other things that were worth pointing out that I enjoyed about this game. The character stats, again, it helps distinguish them not only visually, but in terms of their gameplay style. The things like the momentum of the characters, good because it doesn't feel cheap, but it does add an element just not to be too complacent in this game and too gung-ho. I like the gunshots and the movements of the gunshots because some of the animations, especially with some of the explosions, some of the enemies explode, some of them fart, some of them move, some of them spit, some of them float. They all have different animations when they die. They all have different animations when you interact with them. Other ones, like the exploding ones, for instance, you just can't really do anything about. You can just shoot them or you can't really go near them. The gun mechanic, again, is cool because it does have a significant momentum that if you're not careful, you can shoot yourself off platforms and kill yourself if you're silly bims. There are also elements to the levels that are destructible, so you can shoot crates to open up pathways to other parts of the level. You will need to collect ammo. You can use a dash mechanic to blast through the wooden ones, but the metal ones you will need to shoot through. You don't have much of a choice there. I also like the game has the ability to be able to grapple to a certain degree. You lean in and you just sort of Prince of Persia style, you know what I mean? That's nice. I like it when platformers afford me the ability to be able to undershoot a little bit, but give me a chance to save my sorry ass before I make a complete buffoon of myself. So before I run too long, let's try and summarize this game as best we can then. It encourages practice. It demands your attention. It also demands quick reflexes and innovation in how you approach each level. It has left a really good impression on me. I can't lie though and say it didn't intimidate me to all hell initially because of the number of levels, how hard I perceived them to be, how hard it was to get to grips with the mechanics, and how overwhelming just all of this content is in one hit. But the more you invest in this game, it's another one of those games that the more you invest, the more you get out of it. There's no question about that. And I'd go so far as to say that perhaps with the exception of Data Defense, this is the best produced game with the most fun factor that I reviewed so far. It's very difficult to argue how well this has been produced, how thoughtful and fun it is, and how replayable it is, and how malleable all the functions are to be able to have the fun that you want to have. And I will say that most people, if not everyone, is going to like it, but one very small caveat. And perhaps this is just my lack of experience with the indie market, that price point, it seems a little steep. $13.99 or whatever that's going to be in dollars, $16, $17, whatever that's going to be. That's a lot considering what you are getting at the end of the day is a platformer. There's no story mode. If there was a story mode in this game and the developer later releases something akin to a story mode where the characters have some kind of link, some kind of interaction with each other, that one hands the baton to the other, to the other, to the other, then fair enough. Then I would probably agree that this is worth that price point, because then it has a degree of replayability and it in effect has its own tutorial mode, because I would imagine that each level would lead you into each character with some kind of narrative based cutscene, and it wouldn't take much. Just have them walk up to each other, text bar, begin the level. Super easy. But it doesn't have that. Potentially some other element to the game, some other mode to the game. I get that it already has a lot to offer, and I'm not disputing that fact at all. What I would say though is for that price point, I would expect something that's going to start to compete with other games that are on maybe a slightly higher level than just the indie titles. Just because for that price point, you could buy Data Defense, Power Gunner, and Doom Tank. And those culminated have more to offer you here. You could drop Doom Tank if you wanted to have She Wants Me Dead. That has a narrative. As much as I didn't necessarily enjoy that game 100%, it had a narrative, and that has somewhat of an edge over this game. The characters also lack a degree of customization. It would have been nice to have a few other outfits for them. That would have been nice. More weapon diversity, that would have been cool. Really break the game with weapons like a Devastator or a machine gun or a bazooka. Go Worm style on this if you have to. Overall, is it worth that price point? It depends on how much of a fan of the genre of 2D platforming you are. If you're a massive fan, I would wholeheartedly recommend you go out and buy this game now. You'll find tons of content there, you'll find a great community, a developer that's obviously very passionate about this game and has put a lot of time, effort into honing the craft and indeed producing a very well-oiled and slick-looking product. However, if you're not a fan of 2D platformers, then no, I would not recommend this game at this price point. Wait for a reduction or wait for other updates to come to see what the developer has to offer. It's hard, I know, it's harsh, but as a reviewer, I have to look at things from as wide a perspective as I can, and including my own, and I'm not the biggest platforming fan. I had to give this game a couple of tries to get into it, but once I'm glad I gave it a try, and I'm glad I ended up getting a chance to review it. And I give this game as close to a glowing review as I can, but with that caveat to say that this price point, it makes it hard to say it's the best game that I've played, because I have to take that price point into consideration. And the reason I'm giving hope to that effect is another one of the things that the developer Baby Duka said in one of the responses, and I'll try and quote it verbatim. We've built a very complex and solid alternative to Steam's workshop, now covering all the user data, which is homemade levels, etc. themselves. It's quite an accomplishment for two self-taught programmers. This is a first big video game title for either of them they've worked on. They've built this baby up from the ground with no budget, and no community to a reasonable budget, and hundreds of dashers on Discord. The community helped inspire many of the new upgrades and tweaks to the mechanics. It's such a great example of what you can achieve with great games. We believe that the future of gaming is a game which is always evolving to the users. Now, so long as those tweaks and upgrades aren't chargeable, then I completely agree with that sentiment. And on that basis alone, I would urge you to support these people, because they have built a very, very good game. And assuming that it comes with the support that I think the game would warrant, it has the potential to be a real hit. I really do think that this game has been produced to such a degree that if you can take that price point into consideration with potentially upgrades or some kind of story-based mode, then this game would be worth that price point. And I always love to see this kind of passion, this kind of desire, this kind of initiative and innovation in gaming. So on that basis alone, even with that price point, I am going to recommend that you go out and buy this and go and support it. But what do you think? Danger, action, speed, heroes. Leave me your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you a fan of 2D platformer games? If so, how does this stack up to other 2D platformers that you've seen? Are you able to play this kind of game with ultimately no end game beyond beating that world title? Or do you need a narrative story or some kind of customizable element to the player, not just to the surroundings? What do you think? It'd be interesting to see what my audience thinks, considering I'm not a Minecraft fan, but I know a lot of people are. I'm not a Fortnite fan, but again, I know a lot of people are. So that community element, that creative element, it's something that I'm not used to, but maybe a lot of people are. I'd be interested to hear what people's thoughts are. So leave me those in the comment section below. In the meantime though, thank you very much for watching this rather elongated version of the Halcyon show, please like, share and subscribe. Also check out some of the other content that I've been producing recently. It's not all half-an-hour lectures, not all, but most of it, in fairness. But by all means, feel free to check that out. Also check out some of the other content creators in the description below. They could also do with a like, a share, a subscribe. Also go check me out on Defunct Games. Also check me out on Twitter at Lorne Risley. I'm usually hurling abuse at someone over there. In the meantime though, thank you very much once again for watching. I've been your host, Lorne Risley. This has been the Halcyon Show. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.